Hello and welcome back to I Made This. My name is Ollie and today is the first of a two-part Halloween spooktacular where I'm making the characters from one of my all-time favourite video games, Resident Evil 2. And to start off with, I'm making Leon Kennedy, the rookie cop who on his first day of the job has to deal with a zombie outbreak. As always, I start off by building out my characters with a bit of tinfoil to save on plasticine. And luckily, Leon's costume is pretty much a blue, all-in-one tactical suit. So, you know, I'm just slapping on that blue plasticine for the time being. I didn't actually have a PlayStation at the time the game was first released, but that Christmas I was, gifted a PlayStation by my parents with a copy of Tomb Raider 3 and Resident Evil 2, and I don't think I stopped playing that game for weeks and weeks after, because not only do you have two characters in Leon and Claire, once you complete the game with each of those characters you unlock a second scenario where you kind of get to see the game from a kind of slightly different point of view, and you have different enemies, different locations and areas, and all the items are all in different places. And not only that, if you're good enough at the game, you can unlock Hunk and Tofu. Hunk is kind of like an Umbrella Special Forces agent who, you have to escape with the T virus or the G virus. I forget which one it is in the game. Gets a bit confusing, to say the least. The Resident Evil lore is all over the shop. The other unlockable is Tofu, which I believe is exactly the same as the Hunk scenario, but you are just a slab of tofu with a meat cleaver, and that's the only weapon you have. So yeah, I never actually unlocked Tofu. I got Hunk, but I never got Tofu. Sad times indeed. And what an excellent game it was. That time period for video games was just amazing. You had Resident Evil 2, Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time, Metal Gear Solid, Silent Hill. Just some great games came out around that time, which are games that I still, think about a lot and admire to this day. But if you haven't played Resident Evil 2, it's a pretty simple story. Funny enough, it's a sequel to Resident Evil 1, which, is a mansion-based video game where, a bunch of tactical special forces ops called the STARS team are sent to this mansion, and they discover zombies and all kinds of other monsters there, and a hidden laboratory below it and stuff like that. Then the second game is just a continuation of that, and how the outbreak of zombies kind of gets into the town of Raccoon City, that surrounds the mansion. So you have the choice of two different protagonists. You can either be Leon Kennedy, who I said before is a rookie cop, it's his first day on the job, or you've got Claire Redfield, who is the sister of Chris Redfield, who was one of the main characters in the first game, who has since gone missing, and she's come to Raccoon City to look for him. And Leon and Claire, by happenstance, meet up and they decide to kind of try and escape the city together. Then they hold up in the police station, but all is not the same with this police station. I mean, it's a video game, so you've got to have video game things like doors that can only be unlocked with certain keys and, puzzles and things like that, which then unleash hidden exits out of the police station. And from there you go into the sewer. And then from the sewer you go to an umbrella facility and you basically work your way to escape the city. And then throughout the game, your main villain is William Birkin, I guess, who is the creator of the T virus or G virus. I forget which one it is again. But yeah, so he's infected himself with his own virus, and he's mutating throughout the course of the game and gets more and more and more horrific as it goes on. He has a giant arm with an eyeball on it, and then all of a sudden he becomes like this even more grotesque monster. And then he's got a daughter called Sherry, and then in Claire's game you have to protect Sherry, but then in Leon's you meet a woman called Ada Wong, who has nefarious means, I think, within the game, but comes across as an ally at first. Then in the second scenario you encounter a character called Mr. X, who follows you around the game, and he's a little bit like the Tyrant mixed with the Nemesis, and he's got a big trench coat, and he just, like I said, follows you around the game. And then again, like William Birkin, he starts to evolve and change throughout the game. And at first you think he's unbeatable, but by the end of the game, you do defeat him. And then also the ending of the game on the second scenario has a rocking song that finishes off the game. So it's well worth completing the second scenario just for that alone. Yeah, back to the build though, just the same as every other Claymation characters, the hands are always a pain in the bum and take ages. And you know, whenever you're animating with them, they always get mushed around, and it's always a pain in the bum to constantly keep touching them up as you're working on a film. But you know, must needs. But yeah, a lot of people ask me how my characters look so smooth. It's just a case of constantly working over and over and over with the plasticine to kind of smooth it out. But I don't think there's anything wrong with having fingerprints in your Claymation characters. I think it really adds to the charm. And you know, I don't want to remove that fully from my characters. I want to retain it as best as I possibly can, while still having a character that looks, you know, professionally rendered. So the white Nuplast that I was using, I'm not too sure what happened to it. It started to break apart as soon as I started to mix it together, and it wouldn't hold together. So I don't know if it was like a bad batch that I've got, but apparently you can actually use petroleum jelly to kind of bring it back to life. So I'm going to give that a go, and hopefully I can bring that white plasticine back to life a bit, because if I start to animate with it too much and I start moving the joints, it starts to break and crumble. But thankfully with Leon I can get around this issue with his elbows, because he wears elbow pads anyway. So I've got to build some soft goods elbow pads to go over those joints, so whenever I move them you won't see the cracked plasticine underneath. Really, you don't want that to happen anyway. You want the plasticine to be as supple and malleable as possible. But yeah, I just got a bad batch of plasticine, so I've just got to work with it as best as I can. I absolutely love building out all the detail on the characters. There is a point where I think you can go too far with these things, and you kind of want to keep it just simple enough, because for two reasons. One, I think sometimes it can be a bit visually confusing if you have too much going on with your characters. You want to keep them fairly simple. But also, when you're animating, you don't want too many things that get mushed around on your character, so as you're animating it's warping a lot, and you want to kind of keep it kind of fairly simple. But yeah, going back to the game, like I said, I completed that game God knows how many times. And then just a couple of years ago, the remake came out, which didn't use the kind of locked-in camera angles that the original used, because you know the original was like CGI painted backgrounds that your character moved around in, but they're all from various different specific camera angles, and you had what was called tank control, so what should be up might be down, and what might be left might be right. It's all a bit higgledy-piggledy, and some people can't jive with that. I was fine with it, but maybe newer players who are more used to more modern control methods may find it a bit difficult, but like I said, I was always fine with it. But yeah, it adopted the over-the-shoulder style like Resident Evil 4 and Resident Evil 5 and 6. I mean, we won't really talk about 6. 6 is pretty rubbish, and 5's not great, but 4 is a great game. And they kind of moved away from the over-the-shoulder for the more recent sequels, and have gone on to, first person with Resident Evil 7, which is a fantastic game in my opinion, and 8, which I really enjoyed. When I say fantastic, I just love the gameplay. The actual storylines for these games are totally silly. That's why I don't think they work as movies. They just work as video games, because all you want to do is blow off a zombie's head. Really, that's what you want to do at the end of the day. But yeah, the remake of Resident Evil 2, I thought was really, really good, and it kind of kept close enough to the original, but also added its own like extra elements to kind of keep it fresh. It looked amazing as well, and as far as remakes go, it was really, really well done. I mean, obviously the zombies are a given in Resident Evil, and we've talked about William Birkin and Mr. X, but there are some amazing villains in this game, such as the Licker, one-hit kill if they kind of get you in the right position with their giant stabbing tongue. And also they're incredibly scary. Like the moment you first walk into the police station and you walk into one of the rooms, in the window you just see it crawl past you as you're running across the room to get to the door, and you think, what the hell was that? And it's like you don't see it for a bit later on, but then later on you encounter the Licker, and it's like ugh. And like every time you play that game, you dread seeing the Lickers, because you know that if your health's low or you're low on ammo, you're pretty much a goner. And especially if you're trying to play to get the bonus content like Hunk and Tofu, where you have to do minimal saves or no saves at all and do it in like a super fast time. I've done it many, many times when I've kind of got to the very end, like nearly about to get to the end boss, but then a Licker jumps down and kills me, and I've wasted 2 hours of my life playing that game. But yeah, I'm just making the head now, like just kind of keeping it fairly simple, not overly complex. I mean, Leon Kennedy's not a real person, so luckily, like if you look at the video game artwork for him, he's kind of got a very generic face, so I just did a very generic stop motion face in my kind of style, pretty much, with some floppy bangs. I mean, Leon was actually a really fun and actually quite a simple character to make, really. You know, like, costume is pretty much a blue onesie with some armor plates and some white sleeves, and a little bit of soft goods for a belt and his armbands. But other than that, it was a fairly simple build and actually very enjoyable to make. Sometimes I go a bit overboard with the eyelids, and as you can see, when I actually finalise the model, I kind of toned down those eyelids a little bit, so don't worry. So now I've got the FIMO out and I'm building out some of his like belt buckles and his weapons, such as his gun. You know, in the game you have like a handgun that you kind of upgrade throughout by finding secret keys and things like that, and then you get like a extra stock and handles and that to have more ammo or like more stability in your aiming. The other weapon that Leon has is his shotgun, which I tell you what, when you get that in the game, it's a bit of a sigh of relief, because you know it deals a lot more damage than the handgun. I can tell you that now. And especially when you've got a bunch of lickers coming towards you, you want nothing more than the shotgun at your side. That, or the grenade launcher, or the Magnum. But yeah, you all know the drill with FIMO. Once you're happy with what you've made, you whack it in the oven at 110 degrees for about 15 to 30 minutes, depending on how thick it is. Take it out of the oven, let it cool down, and then start gluing it all together, if you need to. The one thing that was fun about this, though, I actually made it so that the shotgun could actually be pumped back and forth like a real shotgun. Now I'm just building out his arm pads. And then now they're baked, they're nice and hard, and as you can see, the shotgun actually works. I mean, when I say works, you know, you can't actually shoot someone with it, but you know, you can cock it back and forth. Now I'm just gluing on those FIMO bits to his belt, adding those final touches, which it actually adds quite a lot. And again, one of the reasons why I do soft goods belts and the FIMO belt clips is because if you're animating and you're moving the waist around and things like that, you don't want that belt to be made out of plasticine, because it will just mush into all the other plasticine. The good thing about FIMO is it does have a plasticine look to it, so it kind of has the same aesthetic. The one thing I did forget, I forgot to do the detail on his back of his jacket, because normally I like to do the head reveal with the body at the very end, but yeah, you kind of got to do the Raccoon City Police Department logo on the back, which was a little fiddly, I'm not going to lie. And there we have it, Leon is finished. It is time for the reveal. So yeah, as I said, this is a first of a two-parter, and in the second part I'm going to be making Leon Kennedy's partner from Resident Evil 2, Claire Redfield. And if you enjoyed this video, please consider giving it a like and share it amongst your friends. And if you want to keep up to date with the channel, please hit the subscribe button. You can hit the bell icon. Again, I'm not entirely sure what it does, but you can hit it anyway. And until next time, take care, goodbye.